Hello and welcome to Borak Santai with me, Dustin Lintianyong, and Ilista Anaestil. So we're 2024's 5 Alamanda, and today we'll be sharing our experience with biology papers, SPM, and just life in general. A few days ago, we have collected some of your burning questions from this year's 5 Alamanda. Today, we are quite excited to answer each of the things that you have asked us and also your predicaments that you are facing right now. So it's a simple concept. We will be taking turns to answer the questions, and without further ado, let's move on to the first section, which is biology, SPM life, and just general experiences with all of our papers. So let's move on to the first question. How do you memorize important facts related to key concepts?
Okay, so for this question, usually I would refer back to Cikgu Wewe's notes because in her notes it's already very concise.
Yep.
And then she will also put in extra pictures, especially to those who are visual learners like me.
Yeah.
So from there, I am able to memorize the important facts about bio.
Yeah, right. But how do I keep all of these points that I've learned in my long-term memory?
My method is, I will usually buy a spare textbook and then from there I can use to highlight, underline, all of that. I feel that whenever my hand is working, I feel like my brain is also working as well.
Should I jot down certain points to help simplify the process?
I would say yes to jot down notes, but I wouldn't say to simplify the process because you run the risk of leaving out key points. Okay, so moving on. Besides relying on rote memorization, how do I get the facts stick to my brain?
Okay, so one of the methods that I usually do is that I always try to think about the concepts whenever I see something. Okay, so let's say I am currently suffering from a fever right now and I have to take paracetamol. So during my free time when I'm resting, I can think about it like this. How does it help reduce the pain in my system? So from that, I am able to create my own questions related to the chapters that I've learned, basically. Okay, what about you?
I recommend to just make flashcards directly from the textbook itself. And if you want to make flashcards on your own, once you have finished doing the flashcards, right, make sure you let Cikgu Wewe review them so that you don't miss out like any important key points or facts that you might have missed out.
The next question is, what motivates you to continue studying after having a hard time understanding certain topics? Or basically, what motivates you to study?
Incentives. Yes. You know, like all of those Majlis ATC, usually they would reward those SPM leavers with incentives, right?
Yes.
Especially to those who got straight A's. They got 1,000 ringgit or
1,000 ringgit is quite a lot.
It's quite a lot. So, I mean, isn't money the main motivation?
That's a good point.
Yes, the
money,
main motivation to all people.
Exactly. But what else makes you motivated to study?
Well, since I have been accepted by UNIMAS, right? And then I think uni application also applies in this factor as well because certain universities such as QnA, sometimes they would leave out like those syarat-syarat, the requirements, especially for biology. Sometimes for you need to have like an A, right? Minimum A for bio.
You have to have very good results and a very high merit score if you want to get accepted by UNIMAS. It's quite hard.
So in my experience, that has become like one of my driving force.
I have another question, which is how do I make myself disciplined?
So, to be disciplined, it is the combination of efforts and your mindset.
Yes.
So when we talk about mindset, right, you need to be optimistic about your grades. You shouldn't feel very demotivated after like, oh, I got a C for bio, maybe I should just stop studying altogether. You should really change that habit of yours. You should put in more efforts, like how do I become a better person? How do I get a better grade for bio? For example, like this one question, you think that it's very hard to answer during your exams, right? And then you think that most of your classmates could not answer this question as well. And then you want to follow the majority by not answering the question. Why do you want to follow the majority? Just try to answer it by yourself. At least the effort is there. At least you can let you go away to correct your answers rather than having nothing on it.
My exams are in 3 days, let's say. How do I force myself to memorize a lot in such a limited amount of time?
For this one, I would not recommend to study so late.
You really don't have time to answer questions, for example. Just try your best to complete reading all of the notes. At least you're able to grasp 1, 2, 3 concepts on the way.
Okay, so let's move on. How do I raise my grade in biology?
Alright, I think this is quite a popular question. During my trials, I only achieved a B. So what I did is that I became a mentor for a study group with my friends so that I am able to really reinforce the concepts that I am weak in. If you were to be in a study group, I feel like it's a way more friendly atmosphere and then you don't feel as stressed. It's quite a good motivator for me lah. So the other thing is that as a last minute study method, I would often print out trial papers or just look at trial papers from my computer and refer to the answer. I would read out the question aloud and then I would think of the answer first. Then I would refer to the scheme and just mark my own answer verbally. So now that we're done with our questions related to the biology papers, let's move on to the more general questions or SPM related questions that most people have asked us. The first question is, when do you start revising every subject?
For a subject to us, I think you guys are quite okay with it already. Now for sejarah, I would recommend to study at least 1 month prior to your real exam. And then if you're a slow learner, maybe you can put in the effort to study 2 months prior your real exams.
What about the elective subjects or mathematics, for example?
Okay, so mathematics, I would say mathematics and maths are very similar. So I would recommend you to do exercises every day, especially if you are the weaker student. I would also recommend you to maybe study a month before. Maybe for bio, because it is a very packed subject, I would recommend to do the same like sejarah lah, to study a few months before your real exams.
Physics, kimia, how?
For physics and chemia, it's mostly about understanding the definition, the calculation and the process. The process is very heavy on chemistry because there are certain parts, especially in section C, where they ask you to prepare an experiment, right? Formula is also the same, you need to hafal.
Don't worry, we'll talk about this in detail in the next few questions, so stay tuned. Watch until the end.
Yes. Okay, so what does it mean by understanding the concept of a chapter?
This is a very good question actually that one of you asked. To me, the concept of understanding a chapter basically means that you are able to retell the basic overview of a certain chapter. So it's basically that you are able to retell the story lah. Even if you don't recall the nitty-gritty, it's okay. I think that's what it means by understanding a chapter as well. Not only that, whenever someone asks you, how do I apply this concept to a certain situation, you are also able to answer well, which means that you really did master this concept and then you truly understand what are the implications and how the processes actually affect our real life. So now this is a very interesting question. What are the concepts that I should focus on for my electives? So we'll be talking about physics, bio, chemia and maths.
Okay, so for bio, I would recommend you to get down the basics first, especially for Form 4, chapter 2 until 7. And then for chemistry, I would say each chapter is very important. Like Form 4, the calculation, the stoichiometry, chemical formula is very important. So Form 5, every chapter is also very important, like redox, compound. So let's move on to physics and maths.
Alright, for physics and maths, the main similarities between these two brothers is that you must know the formulae. What I mean by this is that you have to understand what do each symbol mean. Because for physics, you will be given a formula sheet. And maths also, you will be given a formula sheet. But they won't tell you what each symbol represents. So for physics, if you are able to understand the formula and really apply the formula, you are actually able to extract the definitions from the formula. And for chapter 7 and chapter 8, you really have to master this because those are the comparison questions. For EdMath, it's actually more or less the same. As long as you understand the formula, you are actually able to substitute the letters with all of the numbers given in the stimulus.
Okay, moving on. How do I find the time to do revision?
I think the most popular answer will be setting up a timetable, which I think is actually really quite useful. I've seen some of my friends who have gotten great results actually use their timetables or their own schedules. So aside from timetable, you have to sacrifice a lot of your free time, especially during Form 5. Don't worry, after your SPM, you will have plenty of holidays. Try to spend more time inside studying, reinforce the concepts that you are weak in. So I think this is one of the more common questions. Where do you source your trial papers from?
I would definitely recommend Fazli, Biosensei's Telegram group. Not only that, I also use like additional mathematics Mathematics SPM channel.
Aside from those two channels, we also follow some of the more popular channels that post trial negeri or any exam papers. Please do not buy trial papers from Shopee.
Yes.
The only thing that we both recommend you buying, this book. Okay? Kertas soalan sebenar, peperiksaan sebenar SPM. It only costs 80 ringgit. So if you want for the other subjects, it's actually quite a worthwhile investment. But if you really don't want also, don't worry, you have a lot of modules.
Any tips for the speaking papers?
So one of the tips, speak in a language. Try to speak in English more if you're working PM. Bertuturlah dalam bahasa Melayu. Instead of just speaking, if you don't want to learn the grammar and you just speak without thinking, you're never going to improve. Please befriend your partner. Don't let your feelings interrupt you during your SPM speaking
yes.
paper. If you're more proficient in the language, let your partner take easier points. This comes from someone who's struggling with their native language. How do I ace my Bahasa Melayu papers?
Buy those buku peribahasa. So for essays, I would definitely recommend to read the past years, seniors essays lah. Also read like the kupasan mutu jawapan as well for karangan.
Another source is that check the majalah. Most of them are actually handpicked essay yang cemerlang.
You should try to incorporate the kata tokoh as well.
What about paper 4?
So about paper 4, which is the listening test, look up those YouTube videos that has different dialects and the macam logat-logat orang Terengganu, orang Kedah.
So you really have to expose yourself to a lot of media
Yes.
from sources all over the world. In case that you get a very hard accent to decipher, you won't feel very burdened by it.
Yes.
Okay?
So, which is better? Textbooks, the teacher's notes, or reference books?
Definitely textbooks. If not textbooks, the teacher's notes. Especially for biology. In sejarah, I would only use textbooks. I do not recommend using reference books is because they try to skim out on the information just for the sake of being easy to read. So you might miss out on several crucial details that you're not even aware of if you don't read the textbook. So that concludes our first section. So now let's move on to the long-awaited section, which is the situations and advice section. So without further ado, let's move on to the first question. The first trial exams is in August. I'm not mentally prepared for it yet. There's only a month left. What should I do as preparation to improve my grades?
To overcome that is by having a solid support system. How? Again, by attending study groups with your classmates. So by having a solid support system, all of you can help to motivate each other, because I know that you're not alone in this situation.
Yes.
Because everyone else is facing it as well.
Do you think flashcards is a viable option?
In my experience, I didn't really use flashcards, but if you want to create one, it's also not a problem as well. Just that if you want to create a flashcard, make sure to let your teachers review it beforehand.
Alright, this is another great question. I don't know how to revise using past year papers. Should I just answer each question as if I'm sitting for the real exam? Should I just answer challenging questions? Which one is better?
I would recommend you to answer challenging questions. Try out those trial papers, especially from MRSM, SBP, or even from Terengganu. Challenge yourself with questions that you think are unexpected that will come out in the real SPM.
But in my opinion, if you have poor time management, I think it's better if you answer the trial questions as if you're sitting for the real exam paper. You are able to estimate how much time you are spending for each question.
Okay, so moving on. I am a chronic procrastinator and I get distracted easily by my phone. How do I overcome this issue? What study method is the best for me?
Honestly, the best study method really just depends on what you are trying to achieve. If you want to achieve ample time to answer each question, you should answer the questions as if you're sitting for an exam. If you are trying to strive for a better grade, apply all the study tips that we have mentioned multiple times earlier this video. In the same vein, how do we prevent ourselves from being distracted by a phone?
There are multiple methods that I have used to overcome this issue. One, I will always put my phone in front of me when I am studying, and I would record myself. For example, I would record myself studying so that I don't have that itchy feeling of wanting to scroll through my phone. I would also recommend you to deactivate your account momentarily. Just deactivate it all the way until the end of SPM.
Okay, so I think this is actually quite a relatable issue. I have been putting in effort to revise early, but I often end up losing motivation a few days before sitting for my exams. I feel anxious and stressed, which causes me to not absorb any information. It's as if my brain just shuts down, so I tend to delay revision. What should I do to help me stay consistent and calm when I study?
About the anxious and stress part, I would recommend you to set up like a reward system every 1 or 2 hours of studying, maybe you can reward yourself by taking snacks or even just walk around your room just to stretch a bit some of the tense muscle in your body.
So I have some more common methods, but the first method is deep breathing. But I think this one you never really heard about it before. It's called progressive muscle relaxation. Here are the steps, so basically. I hope you can read it. I've used this method before. It's actually quite useful. So the other method that most people overlook is sleep. Don't delay your sleep. Overall, you'll be able to function better lah.
Yeah,
When you revise, you won't feel so tired. For the staying consistent part, if I were you, I would befriend useful people. I mean those smart people who are willing to help. You have to find the correct friends in order to ask them questions that you might have. What about you? What do you think?
I think my points are also quite similar to you. You should allocate time for your hobbies as well.
Oh, it's so hard. Oh my god, it's so hard as well. How am I going to finish all my assignments? And I have to prepare for my exams in 3 days as well.
Dek,
Oh my god.
sabarlah dek. Sekarang ada
just
banyak
pasal-
solution tak? Tengok
Apa ni?
Vika je.
What's this?
Sedap kan? Sedap kan? Ah, mantap lah. Tengok. Vika, Datuk Sri Vida pernah makan keropok ini.